Oh, that way for Clintina. Okay. Good morning, family and friends, and um, welcome to this celebration of life for my mother, Aurelia Catherine Taylor Chestang, lovingly known by most of us as Boots. I am Nicole Chestang, the first of her two daughters, or the oldest, or the eldest, or the son. Because, when you got Yvette as a sister, she's always number one, so I can't maybe not be first. My sister Yvette, my father Leon, who you'll meet later if you haven't already, are honored by your presence here. When we planned for today, we of course were thinking about Mom and how to honor our memory of her. And we also thought about you two, both those who are present here with us. And I have to say a special thank you to all of you who made time to join us today, and all the folks who came from out of town, quite long distances, some. And you don't know how excited we are that my aunt, my mother's older sister, and last of her remaining 9 brothers and sisters, was able to join us from Washington, D.C. today. And for all of you who are joining us virtually, who are taking time out of your day because you couldn't travel here, you know, the Chestangs have lived all over the place and have gathered friends in all of those places, and they all wanted to try to be a part, even if they couldn't be here. And I'm just so pleased that through the magic of the internet and the skill of Justin Mose, we are live and streaming this ceremony today. So when we were thinking about this, we wanted to create a moment that enabled all of us to remember her and the extraordinary example that she was as a sister, a wife, a mother, an aunt, sister-in-law, friend, a neighbor, a great hostess, and a champion who took the time to personally get involved in making every community she lived in and organization she was a part of better. We wanted a chance to get together because Mom loved a get-together, right? Both formal ones like weddings and anniversaries and graduations and birthdays, that kind of thing. But she equally loved the informal ones when folks would just drop by on the Chestangs and gather in our yard for an impromptu barbecue or just whatever. She loved to be with people. For her family and friends, and for the lots of others that she thought would benefit from her Southern hospitality, you could always count on Mom for a party. So to honor my mother today, Dad and Yvette and I wanted to get together with those who, yes, share our sorrow that she's not going to be physically with us, but who also wanted to have an opportunity for, you know, a proper way to honor and remember her, and the way she showed up for all of us in our high moments and in our low ones too. To remember her grace and generosity of spirit, her humor, her wisdom, her conviction, her determination to make things better for her family and for her community, and just all the special ways in which Mom touched our lives. So today is going to be a little different than the types of memorials you may have participated in. And while my mother was a deeply spiritual person who loved the Lord, today will not look like a typical church service. However, the word of the Lord and the spirit of the Lord will play an important role in this celebration today. To offer our first scripture and to talk briefly about how we will move forward this morning, I'm going to ask my sister Yvette, and it's right here. Oh, you have no glass. I'll bring them to you. My sister Yvette, who along with my father was really the chief architect of this program today, to get us ready to celebrate the extraordinary life of my mother, Aurelia Chestang, known by most of us as Bootsy.
Good morning again, family and friends. Thank you so much for sharing in this celebration with us. I am to read, I think I might be okay. I'm to read Psalm 62, verses 5 through 8. As you know, Mom experienced many challenges health-wise. Her loss of sight more than 50 years ago, and was such a visionary and champion, and she just had to lean in on her faith, and it's pretty much all she felt she had for a good while, as she was adjusting to so much and making the decision to be the best wife and mom and friend and all that she was. So, as indicative of that is this song. My soul, wait thou only upon God, for my expectation is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. In God is my salvation and my glory. The rock of my strength and my refuge is in God. Okay, well, you're saying, okay, so in terms, say, I'm sorry. Lord have mercy. Bear with me, family. Really? All right. Well, overall, I don't have to read this. You all can read. As Nicole already mentioned, this is a non-traditional memorial service. Mom was so full of life and was so full of personality, creativity, chutzpah, gumption, all those good things. And so we want to just celebrate that today. She was a major hoot, and I'm so thrilled that in the last few years and in the last few months, where she was in hospice and my sister in my home for about 7 months, we had a lot of time to talk and for me to record from time to time various conversations, stories, how she met certain people, how she got involved with certain programs and events and activities and communities, how she impacted people, poignant conversations she had with some. She never told all your stuff, but just touched on it so that it would teach you a lesson woven into whatever the situation that people would confide in Mom in. She never told, because people have called to say, oh, I'm sorry, Leon, to hear about my good friend Aurelia. You know, I talked to her about this and that and this and that and this and that. He was like, really? I didn't know that. Because she didn't tell all your stuff. She just would listen and share and encourage, and it stayed with her. And so people valued that. And so today we want to share fun stories. I have a trillion, but I have tried to pare it down in my remarks later. But we have family, friends, cousins, possibly, her sister may say a few words, and Nona, if you feel compelled at some point too. But I guess I would like to invite my cousin, Letitia, if you might begin, and just share whatever you would like. An interesting story from youth or recent, as you were part of our journey.
So, good morning, everyone. I want to first tell everybody Bootsy was more than just a
Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
She was like a second mom to me. So I really want to say she was a guiding light, a source of love and wisdom, an irreplaceable presence in our lives, not only for me, but for everyone else. Her warmth, her laughter, her kindness touched us in all profound ways. As we mourn her loss, let us celebrate the beautiful memories and the moments shared with Aunt Boosie, as she will always have a special place in our hearts and a legacy of love and strength, and that will continue to inspire all of us. So I love y'all more than I know. I have 4 kids. I am an Yvette as well, after Yvette, and I have named 2 of my children after Nicole and Yvette in honor of Aunt Boosie and Uncle Lynn. So, those 2, my Yvette and Nicole, are the same. But in her last few days, I want to come in and spend some time with her. And the thing with us is always keep yourself nice, always keep yourself fit, always keep yourself together and as a lady. She often told me and all my girls, carry yourself in a way that your head is high, no matter what's going on. Carry yourself in the light. And I just want to let you guys know I am going to continue that legacy. I'm going to make sure that we keep her in our hearts. And I'm sure everyone else is, but with much love, I guess, those are my words of encouragement. Thanks.
Ooh, where do I start? Been knowing the Chestang family, I think the year was 1979 or 1980 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That's my native city, although Louisiana is the connection. Nicole and I are like the same age, but she turns, 62 before I do. So that's all. That's how we were born in 1962, and we're gonna be 62. But all in all, it was the Chestang family with some of the best people that I ever met. Because I ended up going to graduate school at Wayne State. Then they were in Detroit. They took me in. My family, my apartment wasn't ready for 2 weeks. That's when everything you own fit in a car, And then I changed careers, and I still kept in touch with them. Then I ended up being in Virginia. Nicole was there for 16 years. I was there for 16. So, but the love that they had, you were always welcome in their home. And Mrs. Chestang, I just love talking to her because she made everyone she talked to feel special. And I love the way she said my name. Chardell, let me tell you what happened today. But I want to tell you, the love that she's had, the challenges she's overcome, has really touched my life in a way that I really can't express it. But one thing I'm going to tell you before because I don't want to be talking too much like my granddaddy. My mother, I just lost my mother a month ago, exactly 1 month before. Well, actually, I lost my mother February 3rd, so 1 month from when they lost. So January 3rd, and I thought I needed to come here to gain some strength. First parent I ever lost, nobody, really prepares you for that. But I learned that Mrs. Chestang was invited by my mother to come to her nursing class. My mother taught nursing for 35 years in Tuscaloosa. And Mom was the first woman of color to teach at Shelton State. And I know Ms. Chestang has had all the things she's done in the civil rights movement herself. But she gladly accepted the invitation to talk about her, I don't like to use the word handicap or disability because everything she had was so much stronger than what we have, right? But she talked gracefully about it, my mother said, about her losing her vision and how she didn't give up on life and just kept going and inspired others. And all those nursing students, I'm sure, were very taken by that. I love Miss Chestang, and I'll never forget her. And bless you, Chestang family.
Childhood friend, lifelong friend, Laura.
Hello. Everything that I've heard today can be repeated over and over. She was a genuine person. She was my friend. We grew up together from babies. And some of the memories as a small child you can't remember, but I can always remember peeping out the window waiting. She was boots to you all, but my boots was coming. So life goes on, and she's always caring and connecting with everyone. We went to different grade schools, but when I got to Aurelia to high school, she was the first one right there on the steps to welcome me and give me that warm feeling of, being accepted and being there. And we had a school reunion for Aurelia. She was my roommate on the ship that left out of Mobile. She would call me for any information, and we just shared so much to just 2 minutes, just could not, tell you everything that the lifetime that we have shared. And she'd call me for information, and her favorite radio show was Coast to Coast. And I'd have to hear everything and what went on Coast to Coast. And yeah, we can do this, and whatever she needed, we ordered it or found it or whatever. And another thing she loved was Mon Louis Sala.
Oh, yeah.
one week just before COVID, I can't remember what year it was. We shared a whole week on Mauna Island by ourselves. Leon and Yvette showed up every afternoon to check to see if we were still alive. We shared so much, and everything that everyone has repeated today she was just such a sharing and loving person, and inspired me and helped me through life all the way through. We were friends for 84 years. I was with her as much as possible. When Father Prabhu went to give her the last rites, I told him on the way, this is going to be hard, the hardest thing I've had to do. But I will hold up and do my best. We were friends for 84 years. I thank God for such a wonderful friend of 84 years.
Nicole told me that I had 2 minutes. So,
This is Mrs.
yeah.
Long time family, but she has to look at and a joy to be around you. A lot of wonderful experiences. And like we're glad your mom.
Yes, we have. You know, this is hard. This losing Bootsy is hard. But when I think of her and I think of all the good times we had, the laughs, the activities, just sharing time and space with her and her family, I laugh and I celebrate that. Bootsy was truly a Renaissance woman. She was beautiful and smart and humble but confident. She inspired people. She was a true loyal friend. She got me through some really tough times with my husband, who became ill with dementia, and that was hard. But she was there, and I'd call her just out of my mind with just not knowing what to do, frustration and fear, and she would talk me through it, and that got me through it. So even though we've lost her here in this realm, she lives on in our hearts. And when I think of all the things she helped me with, the advice, the counsel, the examples, I just want to celebrate. And like Dolores said, to have had a person of her caliber in one's life was truly a gift. And may she rest in peace, and may we carry on, because that's what she would want. She would want us to carry on, to continue to do the best we can do, to love each other, to be there, because she was always there. So thank you, Bootsy. Appreciate it. Love you.
Friends, we are honored to have all of you here, but I have to say, our 28 years in Detroit were life transformative, and it was because of the New Center area neighbors and all the support they gave Mom as their president and taking her to meetings, whether it be, just our local community, the greater community, all the, major businesses and all such. She was very much involved. And that was largely due to the fact that the neighbors kept her informed, kept her involved, and were present with her. And so we are thrilled to have a group of doctors. And just by the way, our New Center area neighborhood was right in the center of 3 major medical centers. So it's no surprise that here today from Florida are Dr. Homer Ryan, neonatologist, retired, his wife and college sweetheart, Dr. Rebecca Williams, gynecologist, and also, I call her the Alexa Kennedy, worked for many years for Children's Hospital, neurosurgeon, and was just the most wonderful, down-to-earth, jolly, jovial, hilarious, fun neighbors, and gave so much love and support and encouragement to Mom for so many years. So if any of you or all of you would like to say anything at all, I invite you to come to represent New Center area Can. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Leon, Aurelia, Bet, and Nicole. This is my husband, Homer, and I'm Becky. And we met Bootsy and Leon and the family in 1981 when Leon was upset that we bought the house that they wanted right across the street from them. Our house had a pool. And so since we got that house, they bought the house across the street from us. And that was such a great relationship, a wonderful neighbor to have. She was extraordinary. And I appreciated her hospitality. She made everyone just feel like when she was with you, that's the only person that she was with. And she had so many people calling her, talking to her, helping people. She just helped so many people. But you always felt like you were it, and she was concentrating right on you. And I love because she could cook and I could run across there and borrow food and have stuff. And then they would have wonderful Christmas, have people over who didn't have other family who were there. She was always welcoming them in. And we would have those oysters and grits and everything. And it was marvelous. And my husband liked it because she would repair his pants. And he would tell people, she would sew his pants and stuff. And they said, I thought she was blind. He said, hey, she ain't blind. She can do everything. She can do anything. She can do anything. She can do anything. And he would run them over there and she would fix them for him. But that was a thrill for us. And when they retired to Mobile, we were just like, oh, no, how can you leave us here? How can you leave us here? And our lives were enriched by knowing her and knowing you all. And telling you all what to do. I tried to tell you what to do. You want to say something, Homer? Because I know he's sad.
I'm about to cry.
Yeah, I know you are. Because you love Lucy.
I didn't know she was blind. Never knew she was blind. I remember I spent more time on the front porch talking with her than anybody else in the neighborhood. And yeah. The last thing I want to say is because she couldn't see, she could listen and pick up on nuances. I'm going to say this no matter what your political leanings are. If Boots was a consultant for the Democratic Party, we wouldn't have to worry about Trump.
And while we are sharing this moment with our Detroit friends, I would also like to invite a very dear friend who actually helped us secure our home and become part of the community. And that is Mrs. Clintina Sims. Clintina, may I ask you to come? Where's my buddy? There she is. Give her just a moment to walk up. But this beautiful lady, she had a lot of great times, a lot of great conversations through the years. They have come and visited us here in Alabama for Mardi Gras, and she just made a concentrated effort to remain a consistent and very dear friend for all these years. Miss Clintina.
Good morning to some and good afternoon to others, depending on where your body is. Thank you, Nicole and Yvette, and of course, Dr. Leon, for always keeping us in the loop. I was the community planner assigned to the New Center Revitalization Project, which began in 1978 in the area north of the GM building that was changing significantly, according to GM, after the civil disturbances of 1968. And General Motors, I was on corporate real estate staff as a community planner, as I said, but we purchased 6 apartment buildings, renovated them, and rented them, and more than 150 houses. You can invest all, and there were 14 other corporations that were in Detroit that became partners at that time. Burroughs, Henry Ford Hospital, Detroit Edison. You can just imagine. You can invest all of that money, but if you don't have good people to move into the neighborhood, to acclimate with the people that already lived there that were not relocated, including a preponderance of adult foster care homes where the people often walked the streets and did things that were natural to the way in which their lives were at that time. But if you didn't have good people to buy the houses, even when the interest rates in the 1980s went up to 20-some%, stay there, make sure that what was invested stayed, it would have been all been for naught. And it was people like the Chestangs, Dr. Becky, Dr. Homer Ryan in his own way. Those lively community meetings. And many others, it would have been a failure. And 30 years later, when I went back and walked the streets and saw how big the trees were, the first thing I noticed was how deep the roots were in my own life because of a project like that I was blessed to be part of for 10 years and to meet people like the Chestangs. So I didn't have 40, 50 years with the Chestangs, but I've had many good times, and I'm ever grateful for the participation that they've had in our lives. So thank you for being part of the celebration, because this is what it's about. We're celebrating a beautiful life and a beautiful family. Thank you. Nona, would you like to say anything, dear? The one state through it all, got things that work.
Before we go further, I just, whenever you come to events like this or just any gathering, you wonder, well, who are these people in the room? And I'm not going to ask anybody to stand, but I want you to raise your hand. Raise your hand if you are a family member of Boots, an in-law, a niece, a nephew, or cousins. Raise your hand so folks can see who you are. Raise your hand if you've ever been a neighbor of the Chestangs in Detroit or Mobile, Chicago, any of those places. Okay. Raise your hand if you are, count yourself, amongst their many friends. Cool. So you know who those people are in the room. And if you're among her many friends that have known her for more than 60 years, raise your hands. There's a lot of y'all in here. Come on. You all know how old I am. Tell them how old you are. So, you know, we really want to thank all of, you know, our longtime friends. And, you know, raise your hand if you're just a friend of my sister, my father, or I, and wanted just to support. Because we love you so much for being here. We feel so loved. We really do. So thank you for taking that moment. Before we move to the next part of this program, I'm just going to give, if there is anyone who really wants to share a story, I'm going to take that moment right now. Anyone right now? Yes, please. Come on. Tell everybody who you are.
Hi, I'm Eunice. I'm Uncle Leon's first niece.
Right.
So, and I love Aunt Boots. I love Uncle Leon. This is my favorite uncle, and it was my aunt. They're the only ones that's left in my family. So, you know, it kind of hit me that these things happen, you know. But I tell you, I remember Aunt Boots taking up for me in Chicago when I had wanted some food really late at night. They were young. They were really young, okay? And Uncle Leon was going out, and I asked him, would he stop and pick me something up? And he made like he didn't hear me. And so, you know, he came back home. He didn't have any food for me. And at the time, I was pregnant and all. And I told Aunt Boots, I said, Aunt Boots, I said, your husband didn't pick me up. Now, I'm supposed to be the favorite one, right? And I said, and she says, Leon, you know better than that. And she says, Eunice, she says, I'll cook you something. And this was like it was after midnight when Uncle Leon came home. And so, because he had taken someone else home because these people were over to the house. And this has always been they have always been, I should say, my favorite uncle and aunt. I don't care how many of them they had. This was it. That's the only one I claim, really. And that's a shame, but that's the way it was. And when he told me, it really touched me that this had happened. And she really brought life to everybody. I don't care who you were or wherever, she was there. If you needed something, Aunt Boots would always be there to help you in any way that she could. And Uncle Leon, I say to you that if you need me, I'll drive back down here. You know what I'm saying? Because like you say, over 60 years, well, next month I'll be 80 myself. So, you know, but God is good and I love him. Amen.
My cousin Eunice was just teeing me up for part 2, where I'd like to invite her brother, my cousin John, to perform the second scripture reading of Proverbs. Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm gonna move this. It's about my height, yeah. Think you got it.
Sure. Oh. They say that we all have our favorite little moments when we said we loved Aunt Boots. But when I was a little boy, about 5 or 6 years old, and I got my first chance to meet her, and I told my mom she was the prettiest white lady I'd ever seen. And my mother looked at me and said that, baby, she's not white. as I'm scanning over and I'm looking at the scripture reading that we have for this afternoon, it's quite familiar with most of us because we always refer to it as the story of the virtuous woman. And the reading will be coming out of Proverbs chapter 31, and we'll be reading verses 10 through 28. It says, "A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers the field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household. For all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected in the gates, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with fashions. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. And I know that he did. All right. Thank you.
Yes, it's time for you. So the program reads that at this point, my father's going to talk about his love story with my mother, his wife of 64 years. Wait just a minute. When we were putting this program together, Dad said, I want this to be brief now. We don't want to spend all day. I hate to go to those funerals where they're in there all day. And I want to go last because I'm going to need about 15 or 20 minutes. To which Yvette and I looked at each other and said, okay. But before he takes the podium, I just wanted to share a memory that an old friend of our family, which echoes what you've heard before, said, Dr. Gil Rayford. He shared this lovely condolence note in the card that he sent to us. And it kind of sums up in a nutshell the 64-year relationship my parents shared and the way that they really supported one another. Dear Leon and daughters, I was introduced to her as Bootsy and will always remember her as such. She was the greatest helpmeet that God could create for Leon. Amen. Few people knew, but she was truly the wind beneath his sails. She would always listen to NPR, National Public Radio, for those who might not know those letters, to learn what book to read that would help her husband shine as an expert in his field. And she would make sure that he got to read it. And she'd order it for him even and put it in his hands. In truth, she was about as educated as Leon. Most people will remember her for her great cooking skills, her effervescent smile, her deference to her husband, her musical Southern drawl, and her wonderful hospitality. I was privileged to know this other side of Bootsy, the woman who helped Leon raise two beautiful and thoroughly independent girls. And with that, I invite my dad to tell his side of the story. Here, to get in front of
Take this back over there. Hello, everyone. Few men have been as blessed as I have. It's been my blessing to spend 64 years with my dear wife. To me and her friends, she was fondly and warmly known simply as Boots, as you know. It's no exaggeration to say that she was a woman of majesty. She didn't start out that way, but I knew that I had found myself a queen. Now, let me tell you how it all began. I was 15. My friend, Forrest Spencer, told me that there was a Jack and Jill party down at a Lemoyne Lott's house. Some of you from Mobile know Lemoyne. But in those days, a guy had to have a jacket to go to a party. And I didn't have a jacket. I was in Mobile and I lived in Pritchard by then. So my friend Forrest says, well, I got a jacket. Now, Forrest's arms were about 6 inches longer than mine. So the sleeves were way down here, but it got me in the door to the party. So I got inside this place. Now, keep in mind, I'm a kid from Pritchard, Alabama. And in those days, Boots told me later that her dad used to say, where did you find that Pritchard boy? But that was what he said. Because on occasion, Mr. Taylor used to have to drive me home, because back in the day, see, you dated on Wednesdays and Sundays. And the bus drivers of the Mobile City Lines used to wait for me in front of Dunbar High School, which is now Central. If I was late, because the last bus ran at midnight, and he knew if I missed that midnight bus, I'd have to walk all the way to Pritchard. And I'm sure the people on the bus used to wonder, why are we sitting here? And when I would, sometimes Boots would keep me a little longer than. So anyway, I caused a lot of people some trouble. Now, Boots had come to this party with another guy. When I got in there, I said, I was a little shy, believe it or not. And I didn't know these people. After all, I was a Pritchard boy. And so I got the nerve, so I asked her to dance. And she agreed. She'd come to this party with another guy, so she declined my invitation to walk her home. but she gave me a phone number. And she told me to call her, which I did. Now, I had been talking with her on the phone for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I didn't know her name. I knew it couldn't be this Boots. That didn't sound like a name. So I finally asked her, what's your name? And she told me it was Aurelia. I thought, a beautiful name for a beautiful woman. Now, my daughter Nicole cautioned me that this was to be an occasion of joy, not sadness. It's to be a celebration of Mom's life. So I'm going to do my best to adhere to her admonition for the next few minutes as I tell you about my boots. I remember asking her one time how she chose this pretty boy. She said, that night when I took her in my arms to dance, she said, I just fit in your arms. What a wonderful memory that is. She said, she just fit. I thought she just fit too, but what did I know? So, our lives as husband and wife began in St. Louis, Missouri. Now remember, this was the 1950s, and housing for African Americans was not easily found in any city in the 1950s. A friend of mine from college had found us a room, $14 a week. And that was all we could afford at the time, of course. And we were laden with gifts. We'd had a rather large wedding. I think 200 or 300 people came to our wedding. We had lots of stuff. So we had to share the bathroom at this rooming house with 5 or 6 other couples and individuals. And I was not going to bathe after all those people. So, being a lady, Boots decided she had to have a bath every day. So she went on about Clorox and Does and all other kind of things. And she washed this tub down every time before she used it. I didn't bathe for a while. Now, keep in mind, I was only 22 and she was 21 when we married, and I knew little about being married. Now, truth be told, I didn't know nothing about being married. But we had an argument about something in the first few weeks. And she decided she was going to leave and come back to Mobile to her parents. Well, I said, I can't let this happen. So what I did, I got a bucket, filled it with water, and I threw the water on her because I knew she wasn't going to leave all wet. Well, she got the bucket and she filled it with water, intending to throw it on me this time. But I ran and I jumped in the middle of the bed because I knew she wasn't going to wet up the bed. Of course, I don't remember what the argument was about. We made up quickly. And we've talked about this and laughed about it many times over the last 64 years. So that was a rather bumpy start to those 64 years that we spent together. I went to St. Louis because I was going to be studying for my master's degree in social work. And so I finished my degree. We moved to Springfield, Illinois, where we made many friends and spent many happy times together. In Springfield, we faced our first major crisis. Boots developed an illness called oculomotor neuritis, which caused really severe pain in her face and head. And sometimes she would scream out in the night. It was so painful. One of the neurologists told me, he says, now I can stop the pain, but I'm going to have to cut a nerve in her face, and her face is going to be a little twisted, but she won't hurt anymore. And I said, we're not going to do that. So I consulted another neurologist who resolved the problem using some other technique. Boots thanked me many times for not letting them disfigure her. I made the decision that I did because I loved her, and I believed there had to be a better way than the one the physician had proposed. She recovered and our lives continued for the remainder of our time in Springfield. Now, there's one notable incident in Springfield which deserves mention. Our first daughter, Nicole, was born there. And they had rules at the hospital about when you could visit. And I couldn't just go and see her after she had delivered the baby whenever I wanted to. I couldn't go. They had rules. You had a certain time you could come, even a father. And I should mention, some of you don't know this, that Nicole's an 11-month baby. And she was born with hair to her shoulders, fingernails curved under, and teeth. The doctors had told me, he said, Mr. Chestang, your wife sent me back to my books. I've never faced anything like this. He said, take her for a bumpy ride in the car. Maybe that'll make the baby come. So I took her for a bumpy ride. Nothing. Went back another week. He said, give her some castor oil. Boots, eager to get the baby out, drank 2 bottles of castor oil. No baby. So the doctor decided, we got to put her in the hospital. They wasn't doing, I know you're thinking cesarean. They didn't ever mention cesarean. So he said, I'm going to move in the room with her. And he took a bed next to her bed at the hospital because he said, we're going to have this baby. I'm thinking, this man going to kill my wife. But bottom line, Boots eventually had the baby, which was a big old baby. Now, I was telling you about how they wouldn't let you at the hospital, wouldn't let me in whenever I wanted to. So on my lunch hour from work one day, I snuck to a back door of the hospital and snuck in the room. When I got there, my wife was blue and she was doing it. And I said, oh my God. And then I looked, she had to have a lot of transfusion because of this big old baby. So I started screaming for help. And they came, there was ice in this blood they were giving her. And she was turning blue. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't snuck in that day. Anyway, I mentioned that to say something about some of the things we had to go through. Some of the things she had to go through. So, Nicole got born, and we decided that our lives were going to be a good life. But Boots, being the Boots she was, decided we needed to move out. We had a nice apartment, but she wanted a house. Well, they weren't renting houses to Black folk in Springfield at the time. Well, those of you who know her, as John said, she was one of the prettiest white ladies you ever saw. So we heard about the bank having houses in trust that you could lease. But I couldn't go down there because I was obviously what I was. So Boots went down and she told the man her husband was out of town on business. And if she could give him the papers, give her the papers, she would get them to me, I would sign them, have the lease. He said, fine. He loved the Southern accent. Oh, well, didn't take him long. We got the house. It didn't take him long to find out he had not rented to a white family. But not to be outdone, the bank published, as soon as they discovered in the newspaper, the Illinois National Bank is now leasing homes regardless of race, creed, or color. They got so much positive publicity out of that. Blacks started going to the Illinois National Bank. And I'm thinking, Boots, they got over on us. And one of our neighbors, they hired as an officer, a black young man, they hired him as an officer. So we opened up Springfield. So some of the locals wondered, how'd y'all do that? But she just did it. I don't know how she did it. But after a while in Springfield, I developed a hankering to find out, could I make it in the big city of Chicago? I had done 4 years in Springfield and was fairly successful. And so I wanted to go to Chicago. We got to Chicago. Boots' Aunt Margaret, some of you know of her, had found us a very nice, lovely apartment. But after about a couple of years in the apartment, she started again. We need a house. The baby is getting to be 4 years old and we need a house. Well, keep in mind, I'm just 27 years old. You people, black or white, at 27 own their own homes in the 1950s. So I had to go out of town on business, and she kept hankering and bothering me about this house thing. So I challenged her. I said, look, baby, we've got about $1,000 saved. Now I got to go to New York. If you can find a house for $1,000 down, I'll buy it. I was sure she'd never find a house for $1,000. When I got back home 2 days later, she found a house. 7 rooms, basement, good neighborhood, $1,000 down. So I bought the house. And we lived there for over 13 years. And it was there that her prowess as a homemaker, cook, interior designer, shone like the stars in the sky. Her daring spirit again surfaced in our Chicago days when Dr. Martin Luther King came to town to make a speech at one of the local churches. Well, a group of militant black activists decided they were going to attack Dr. King because of his stance on nonviolence. Well, Boots and a group of other women surrounded Dr. King and took him to a safe space in the church. I wasn't there, but I wasn't surprised when I learned that she had done this. She'd done a similar thing in the first apartment we had in Chicago. I came home from work one day and she told me how she had chased away the Blackstone Rangers who were seated on the stoop in front of our house. Now, the Blackstone Rangers were the notorious street gang. And I said, you did what? She said, I made them go. I said, those boys will kill you. I guess she said, I'm still here. That was the kind of courage she demonstrated even when I'm out of town. Well, it was in Chicago, though, that the sarcoidosis eventually robbed her of her sight. And that event threatened to destroy my wife's dreams, the loss of her sight. As you might expect, she was depressed for a long while. And all I had to offer her was my love, my support, and my encouragement. A skilled seamstress and designer, she withdrew from her sewing machine, and melancholy seemed to be the pervasive force in her life. After about 2 years, I came home from work one day, and I saw her at the sewing machine, sewing. So I said, "What's going on? What brought about this change?" He said, "Well, I decided I was either going to live or die, and I decided to live." I said, "Okay." And for the next 50 years, being blind did not get in her way in the same way that it had before that time. Now, I was in my early 30s in Chicago when a group of us young Black social workers decided to create an all-Black social agency. And of course, Boots supported me in this endeavor. People soon learned that she was an accomplished cook, having enjoyed some of the pig ears she made one day for one of our committee meetings at our home. Impressed with her skill in preparing these pig ears, one woman said, "We can raise a lot of money selling pig ear sandwiches." At Lake Meadows, which was sort of the upscale apartment complex in Chicago. Reluctantly, after expressing much doubt, Boots made a big old pot of these pig ears. By the way, John and Eunice, your mother taught her to make chitlins and pig ears. Because I took her, shortly after I got married, I took her to my sister Florence's house and said, "Teach her how to cook chitlins." And she did. So anyway, the woman sold the pig ears out in 1 hour. We never did that again, but it just illustrates, here's a woman who grew up eating steak, but became proficient at cooking pig ears. Now, she was a leader in our children's parent-teacher organization. They didn't have, things had evolved from PTA, now it was parent-teacher organization. She helped organize a major protest against the Chicago Board of Education for the quality of education our children were receiving. The protest was so successful that it attracted the attention of NBC News and was recognized on the 6 o'clock news and published in the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Daily News. This was one of the first community control of school successes in the country. Now, I became the voice of the protests on TV and in the newspapers due to my ability as a talker. But I knew that Aurelia and the other mothers were the real brains behind this whole affair because they would tell me what I needed to say. I just knew how to say it. Over the years, people have asked me how we managed such a long and happy marriage. And I tell them this. We talked a lot. Sometimes we'd sit in bed talking all half the night. We respected each other. We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we accepted both. When I would get a little bit full of myself, she would remind me that you are the dean at Wayne State, not at this house. Another thing I would tell people is that neither one of us ever doubted the love of the other. We loved each other, but we also liked each other. Our love was so strong and apparent that even strangers could recognize how much we cared for each other. We had a little tradition in the family. Each year on our anniversary, we would get a babysitter for Nicole and Yvette, and we'd either go out of town to a nearby city and check in a hotel, go to a nice restaurant, and we did that every year. One year in Chicago, we went to Lake Geneva in Wisconsin. We had found this wonderful restaurant near where we were staying. And a Russian scientist in America on business was in the room. He asked the maitre d' to ask us to join him. Well, I'd seen that in the movies, so I joined him. He said, I noticed the way you guided your wife in and seated her, and I decided she must be blind. And he said, my wife was blind too. She was a scientist, and some chemicals had blown up in her face and caused her to lose her sight. And he said, but I could tell that you two were two people in love. He insisted on paying for our meal, which I didn't object to. Now, our time in Tuscaloosa was brief but eventful. Her mother and instincts reared up and took on a long-held tradition in that southern town. The city had a program called the Tuscaloosa Guides. Now, this organization consisted of teenagers who would escort national and foreign dignitaries around the city. An ad had appeared in the newspaper inviting people to join, teenagers to come in, make an application, and join the Tuscaloosa Guides. And these were supposed to be the white girls. But Boots decided Nicole could be a Tuscaloosa Guide. So she had her apply. Well, Nicole went down. She was accepted and published in the newspaper that this new Tuscaloosa Guide. Many of the local residents wondered, didn't y'all know you weren't supposed to do that? Well, I guess Boots said, no, she didn't know. We had to find some kind of way to entertain Nicole. But to me, that was just another illustration of why I love this woman. If she felt something needed to be done, she did it. In the last few weeks, months, we used to sit on the front porch of our house before we moved over to the girls' house. One day, as I was taking her back into the house, she said to me softly, you've taken care of me for so long. And I guess I had, and it was a joy to be able to do that. And I also remembered, I learned along the way that Jesus had told his disciples that all of us had the capacity to heal, and I thought I could do it. So we were praying together. By now she was in hospice, and I asked the Lord to take care of her, heal her, bless her. When I finished, she said, and I want God to take care of you too. "30 years ago, country and western folk recorded a song that summarizes what I think is our story. I'm going to share it with you. I'm not going to sing it. The name of the song's Look at Us. It goes, look at us. After all these years together, look at us. After all that we've been through, look at us. Still leaning on each other. If you want to see how true love should be, just look at us. Look at you. Still pretty as a picture. Look at me. Still crazy over you. Look at us. Still believing in forever. If you want to see how true love should be, look at us. 100 years from now, I know without a doubt, they'll all look back and wonder how we made it all work out. Chances are, we'll go down in history when they want to see how true love should be. They'll just look at us.
Yeah.
Yes, take a seat, please.
Everyone, thank you so very much for sharing this special celebration of this wonderful lady with us. We needed you, as you can see. We needed your presence, your prayers, your well wishes, your favors, and all the expressions, so many expressions of love and support over the past few years, the past few months, and in recent weeks and days. So thank you so very much for all you've said and done and prayed for us. So keep the Three Musketeers in your prayers. And at this point, I would like to basically wrap our program. A couple of things. I'm so thrilled to have so many of my cousins here. We were raised, we lived out of town. Most of them were here in Alabama, but we would drive these long drives from Chicago and Detroit down to visit. We would be thrilled beyond when we got out of the car at grandma's house to see everybody and to get together and just have so much fun hanging with their friends who are like extended family because we've known them for so long, in-laws and their brothers and sisters and all. We just were always having so much fun together when we would come south to visit the family and all these wonderful friends of theirs. And when they retired and came back, they developed the Crew of Davis Avenue, as a new Mardi Gras crew. All these friends that had gone to high school together, worked and lived and traveled all over the world and came back home to retire. And they put together their crew. Wonderful balls, wonderful experiences, parties, meetings, all such as that. bouts and, you know, all kinds of wonderful, great times and challenges and great times again. So full circle. And so to that end, we just really appreciate all of your support. This program has gone on a little bit long, so I just want to wrap things up. I want to also acknowledge a member of the Jazz Studio. Oh my goodness. Andrew Ayers has been playing piano from a very tiny little child, like 3, 4 years old, very young. And I came to know him through the summer jazz camp program and of course the development of the dream of our Mobile music icon, Mr. Hosea London, to have a year-round program, but also to make sure that the Excelsior Band and other programs like that, organizations like that, could sustain forever in this beautiful town, in this wonderful state, and keep the traditions going. And last I checked, all the gentlemen at the Excelsior Band from the years ago when I moved here all had gray hair. So it's like, it's time to start building on that, strengthening it, and having it to be a fun experience. And that's exactly what I witnessed as the program developed, as it developed, it gained much support. And it came together fairly quickly, but then of course the auditions came for the kids to become part of the program. And Andrew and his twin brother, Brian Ayers, showed up for the audition at the Ben May Library and were among our inaugural class of that program to begin from the summer jazz camp to a year-round jazz studio music education program. I am so thrilled that that program is now a part of the Excelsior Band Preservation Incorporated, hallelujah, and will continue. And students, former students like Andrew, who had his own band with his brother throughout high school, has performed all over and encouraged and mentored so many other students. And they have such a great network. They're such buddies. They have chats. One of my cousin's daughters, my cousin Letitia, who spoke earlier, her daughter participated. And she mentioned that there's a group chat that they keep year round, so that they keep in touch all year round to see how each other's doing and to kind of keep in touch. So it's just been a wonderful network. And they're just such phenomenal young musicians. So Andrew, thank you so very much for being here, for sharing this. You'll hear him play in just a few moments. And we are inviting you also for a lunch. So we have a catered spread for you in the adjacent dining room. And before we partake, I'd like to invite my dad's dear friend who's like an uncle to Nicole and me. My father has known him from a young child. They became Boy Scouts together, Eagle Scouts together, were lifeguards at the the Pritchard Pool and all such as that. So they go way back. And so again, once again, he's a longtime family friend, but it doesn't look like it. So Mr. Rudolph Hunnell, would you please come and deliver a blessing of our food, and we will exit at the rear, straight across the hall to the dining room. And of course, right around the corner from that, you'll see tables and chairs, plenty of seating for you to partake of lunch. And again, thank you so much for coming. Have the most wonderful day, and we will definitely stay in touch.
This has been a beautiful occasion. The Lord has smiled upon us. He has smiled upon each and every one of us. And I'm asking the Lord to search every heart who's here. And we ask the Lord, if you find anything that shouldn't be, please take it off and straighten me. Let us have the blessing. We thank you, O Lord, for the food that we're about to receive, that it will be nourishment to our bodies and our bodies to your service. And everyone say, amen.
Thank you. We love you all.
And I'll take with me the memories to be my sunshine after the rain. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.